Hey folks, welcome back to Jerome Bee Farm and Homestead. We're still shooting videos out here in the barn. It's late winter, spring is just around the corner, and let's see, it's February the 19th, 2022. It's really nice out. It's about 60 degrees. The bees are flying. They're hitting the pollen substitute feeders I have out. They're just tearing those up. And also I put out the liquid from my cappings, from the wax cappings where I melted that and processed that. The first melt, there's a lot of honey in that, and I had about 1 inch of water in there, so all that honey mixes with the water, you get the wax out, and I put that water out there, and boy, they're tearing that up too, and taking that back to the hives. So that ought to really stimulate the queens to start laying, simulating there's a flow on. So yeah, that's good to get your queens laying a little bit early, so you have more bees. 21 days from now, you'll have more worker bees to go out and gather nectar, and that'll be mid-March. So should be lots of dandelions out at that time, and the main nectar flow, you know, is April time frame when the redbuds start blooming. So today I'm going to be making some cakes for the bees, some sugar cakes. So why are we making sugar cakes when the flow is coming and spring's just around the corner? So this time of year, especially if you've had a colder than normal year, which we've had about average, I'd say so far. We've had a few cold snaps, but your bees can work their way through all of their food stores and run out of food when it's nice outside and there's not a lot of stuff blooming. There's not enough to sustain them. So they need that carbohydrate, that sugar. If they're out of honey in their hive, pollen won't keep them going just by itself. They've got to have the carbohydrates as well, which is honey or sugar, fake nectar, whatever. And you can't give them, you can, but it's not a good idea to give them liquid this time of year, even though I'm giving them a little bit. They can't metabolize liquid when it's really cold out. But when it's warm, they can metabolize it no problem. But if we were to have a super cold snap tomorrow, you would have all that cold liquid inside the hive, and that's a bad thing, so you don't want that. But anyway, I want to show you how I make these sugar cakes. So I go into Walmart and I'll buy 4 of these 25-pound bags, and I'll have 100 pounds of sugar coming out of there with me, and I have been accused of being a bootlegger. I just say, no, it's for bees. And then, you know, it's like bootlegger they get, but it's like, why are you buying 100 pounds of sugar for bees? What is wrong with you? Anyway, so we're going to dump this in this 5-gallon bucket here, and I'll get the camera zoomed in and show you how we do it. And I don't use this whole bag. I'll probably use about half of it. And we'll put the sugar out on these trays and to make our cakes. And I'll show you how I mix it up and how we separate it out to make our little cakes and get it dried out. Let's get going. Okay, I use a drill and a paint mixer. This is an old 14-4 DeWalt drill I had, and I put an 18-volt to 20-volt adapter on it and dremeled it out so I could get it on this drill, because it doesn't fit exactly. It's an 18-volt, so I had to screw it up here. And this is a 20-volt lithium battery, so get a little bit more life out of this old drill. So we'll start out, we'll put about half of this in there. If you get too much in there, it's hard to mix it up. And I add a feeding stimulant a little bit, so I use Pro Health from Man Lake. And I'll put, probably 3 or 4 tablespoons. It doesn't take much. So this stimulates the bees to take the sugar, and also it keeps it from getting moldy. You could use vinegar, and it would do the same thing. Well, vinegar would stop the mold, but vinegar won't stimulate the bees to take it. And I add a little bit of water, so I just have a cup of water here. It doesn't take a whole lot, so you want to mix it to where it's kind of packs like snow, like a snowball. It won't stick like snow, but it gets close. So it's still way too powdery. And add some more water. So I put in probably 2/3 of this big old zoo cup. After you put water in, you want your drill in forward, because it'll fling it all over you if you don't. And once it gets kind of gooey, put it in reverse. See how I'm pulling that powder up from down deep? You could do this with a big old spoon, but it would take forever and wear your arm out. See how it kind of packs now? That's about what we're wanting. It's still a little dry in some areas, but it still will mix a little bit more beyond this on its own. You don't want it too wet, because the water will leach out and sit in the bottom of your cookie sheet when you set it out. So I think we're about where we want to be. All right. So see how that packs? That's what you want it to do. If it crumbles apart, that's too dry. And if you got water dripping or squeezing out when you squeeze it, it's too wet. You need to add some more sugar to dry it out. Okay, I got a couple of really big cookie sheets here, brownie sheets, whatever. This one here is huge, but some people say, I've heard someone say they like to put theirs in the oven and at a low temperature. I think they said below 200, just to dry it out faster. But if you do that, be sure your cookie sheet will fit in your oven, because this sucker will not fit in your oven. So I just let mine sit out here in this barn, and in a couple days they're dry and ready. So let's get our sugar in here, and I'll show you how I spread it out and get it all divided up. And see, there is a little bit of dry in there that will eventually get mixed in. So I like to use a spatula if I don't have one handy. I'm just going to use this piece of cardboard. And you don't want your sugar to be thicker than your spacer on your hive that you're going to put it under. So you use this in conjunction with a spacer. So you'll put this right above your top box, and you'll set your cakes right on the frames below where the bees are. So your inner cover is going to fit on top of this. So your inner cover has a little bit of gap in it, but not much. So you don't want your sugar to be thicker than whatever shim you use. I think mine are like 1.5 inches, something like that, but just eyeball it. So you know it can be a little taller than this pan, but not much. You can use taller shims. So it looks like I can mix up some more sugar because I'm not going to be completely full here. Okay, so I went ahead and mixed up the rest of that 25-pound bag. I was trying to keep my hands from getting sticky, but they're sticky anyway, so I'm just going for it here. It's easier this way anyway. Get less on the floor. So I got them both pretty much just at the pan height, which is fine. If you wanted to get more sugar in your hives at one time, you could make them thicker. Okay. So now we need to fix this to where it's not going to be one giant hunk of sugar. We need to fix it where we can break them apart. So I like to have my cakes a certain size. About this size. So this is one that I've done right here. So you kind of see how big that is. So I'll put, you know, you can put one on a hive, or you can put 2 or 3, whatever you want to do. If it's not a real strong hive, you know, they don't need 4 chunks of sugar on there. One will just cover them up there on the top, right above where their cluster is. So that's about the size I go for right there. So you can use your spatula, or I'm just going to use this piece of cardboard, and I'm just going to kind of mark. Just eyeball it, you know. So that'll work there. And then just push it all the way down to the bottom. It just makes a little indentation, separates the sugar out. And then I'll just go right up the middle. And I always come back and push that down again because it kind of collapses it sometimes. It may be just a little bit on the dry side because it's kind of crumbly, but there's a fine line between just right, too dry, and too wet. If you get it too wet, it takes forever to dry, and you don't want that, because I want to put this on my hives not tomorrow, but the day after tomorrow. And this needs to be dry enough that when I get it out, it doesn't crumble all to pieces. So, and like I said, you can speed that up if you want to put it in the oven and go ahead and do that. So I'm going to do the same thing here. These will be just a little bit smaller, and that's okay. The cardboard's coming apart. So you notice this one here is a lot smaller. It's good to have different sizes so you can kind of mix and match and try and get them into a certain location. Because if they're all uniform, sometimes one may be too big to take care of an area and you just need a small piece. Or maybe you just want to put a little piece on a hive that's like really strong. All right, just kind of pat down some of these crumbs so they don't flake off later. All right, so when these are good and dry, you can kind of clink them together and they clink just like if you had two bricks. They make that kind of clinking sound. So that's pretty much it. So this is what we're going for, and you know how hard that is. So we'll have these in a couple days. I've got 30 hives out there. Well, I have 30 locations. I have probably, I think 24 hives that are going, and I don't have 24 cakes here. And that's okay, because a lot of my hives don't need this. So I know from the past, I went out there about a month ago and I lifted each hive from the back, just tilted it to see how heavy they were. I had two that needed feeding, like emergency feed, and I got that on them right away. So they've been through two really severe cold snaps with some sugar on them, because they wouldn't have made it. I could lift them with 2 fingers, that's how light they were. 2 double deep, full 10 frame bodied hives. So I have also, I'd say 10 or so that are lightweight, and that's what these are going to go on to, the lightweight hives, just to tie them over till spring to the nectar flow. We'll keep going out there and pop the lid up and look under there into the spacer and see how much of this block's left. So they'll eat it from the underneath, and it'll start falling down in from the sides, or not falling in, but they kind of eat it from the sides inwards, and you'll see when it's about gone. And you can just, what's neat about this system, you just put another one on there. There's no need for bringing over another frame that has a big sugar feeder on it. You just set on a block, just set it in there. It's simple and easy, and I really like that. I like it better than the feeders I have that I fill up a whole shim and it's got a hardware cloth wire on the bottom. I'll show you that. So this is another type of feeder. So it's the shim, but it's got all this hardware cloth in it. So, and it's 1/2 inch squares. So what I do is I'll put newspaper or paper towel or something in here, and I'll pack the sugar in, and I'll fill this thing completely full. And then you can just set this on the hive. And it's got a little hole here for ventilation, because when you cover up the hive like that, air can't get through to their little inner cover notch. So you blocked it off. So you got to have a place for the air to get through. And I've got the little screen there to keep ants off of it or other bees trying to rob it, because when that Pro Health's on here, it will attract other bees. I haven't had any robbing issues with this before, because it's just not really the time of year for robbing, but just in case, I have that screen on there. So I probably won't video taking it out. I'll probably just end this here, and you've seen the little one I have there. So that's basically it. My next video will probably be putting these out on the hives. So give me a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe on your way out. It's going to be hopefully it'll be a really good 2022 season. 21 was tough, man. It was really cold part of the year, colder than we've ever had for central Oklahoma. And when the nectar flow finally was here, it wouldn't stop raining. It rained and rained and rained. So the honey harvest was half what it was 2020. 2020 I had 700 pounds, 730, something like that. And last year I had 3 something. So yeah, it was a tough year for beekeeping. But I still got my bees. A lot of people lost a lot of their bees in that really severe cold that we had. But anyway, I will shut up now, and we'll catch you on the next beekeeping video. Y'all take care.